Roll for Crit is made possible thanks to the support of viewers like you and our patrons on our Patreon page.
You can become a patron for just $1 a month at patreon.com/rollforcrit.
Roll for Crit's back with our continuous coverage of Gen Con Online. We're back with Tim from Thunderworks, and of course with the Role Player Line series. Now, we're here to talk about the new Fiends and Familiars expansion first, but of course I'm sure we'll touch here and there about some of their other games. Yes. Welcome, and thank you again for joining us.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me again. Just enjoying the beautiful weather here in Madison, Wisconsin, sitting out on my porch, and just a little too early to start the adult beverages, but join you guys and we'll have a little chat. So.
Yeah, I think I hear birds chirping. It sounds idyllic over there.
It's nice. It's nice. I thought, most of us all kind of have been kind of, inside for too long. So it's always nice to kind of go out here on the porch and enjoy the nature a little bit. So
it's a little too hot over here for that. But, so there's your weather from
yes,
right?
Yeah, exactly. It's really nice here, so I'm taking advantage of it. So, well, thanks for having me on. This year Gen Con a little bit different. Normally we'd be in the dealer hall with all the rest of the exhibitors and a million people just streaming by, stopping at the booth and checking out all the games that we have from Thunderworks Games. But this year it's a little different. We can't be all in the same room together, but it's great to join you and your viewers to virtually kind of talk about what Thunderworks Games has, and especially our Fiends and Familiars expansion, which just rolled out. And we'll talk about that and some of the other stuff we have coming out, and the old favorites. So.
Yeah, well, let's pretend we're at a Gen Con booth right now.
Do you want me to make background noise of just everyone shouting?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'll talk really loud and yeah. So
the announcer cutting in.
Attention Gen Con attendees.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. Why don't you give us the spiel of what you might say to a passerby?
Yeah. So Fiends and Familiars is our newest release that was for just hit shelves for retail, and it got to backers, Kickstarter backers last month after a delay, of course, but that was a small delay considering everything that's been going on so far this year. So we're excited to get this out into people's hands. This is the second expansion to Role Player, our kind of flagship game, if you will. This adds more to the game, and the best thing about it is it doesn't weigh down the game and make it any longer. So that's what's exciting. You get more choices, more ways to mitigate dice rolls, more ways to score, and to add more to the base game without making it longer. Just real quick, what Fiends and Familiars is adding are two main things. First are the familiar boards. And so for those who have played Role Player before, you know that you get your character card with all of your stats, and you're trying to fit the dice into the stat rows for strength, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and you're trying to fit those dice in to match a certain scoring condition. So you have cards that give you a location where you have to have a red die, and that die must, the total of all the dice in that row have to add up to a certain range or a certain number to get scores. Well, now we add the familiar board, which attaches on the top of your player card. And the familiar, just like in role-playing, familiar is your kind of companion animal, companion friend that sort of follows you along. We've got a number of them in the game. My favorite is probably the blood badger. Madison, Wisconsin is home to University of Wisconsin. Our mascot for a football team are the Badgers. So blood badger is kind of the homage to the Badgers.
Perfect.
And but it's not just a nice little friendly badger. It's like badger should be, right? It's a blood badger, mean, bloodthirsty. No. So the familiars give you an additional power when you add dice to that particular space on the familiar board. You're able to take this extra power, which may allow you to use one of your stat powers to re-roll or move a dice. It may allow you to buy something from the market for a cheaper price, so you spend less gold for it. Things like that. So, and it builds out the story too, because you have this additional thing on your character that when you're telling the story. Which, by the way, is I think my favorite part about playing role player. I mean, you can play role player and just play the game, right? And just think of it as a puzzle where you're trying to get dice into the slots and certain things. But sure. Some of the best games that I played, and when I demoed it for hundreds of times that I've demoed it, is when people start to tell a story behind it, make the character kind of come to life. You have all that information there. You've got your backstory. You have your character. It tells you kind of what your motivations are. And when you start to build that story up, talking about what you're doing, what your reasons for doing certain things, it's really fun. And the familiar just adds more depth to that, so you can do more of those kinds of things. So that's the familiars. And the second thing that the Fiends and Familiars adds, of course, are the fiends. It is called Fiends and Familiars. We see it often mistyped as friends and familiars. These are not your friends. Yes, they are fiends. And these fiends attach to some of the initiative cards. So the initiative cards are where you put the dice that you're going to draft each round. And those fiends, when you take that particular dice, you have to take the fiend with it. And these fiends are mean. They do terrible things. They make you pay more for market cards. They make you, lose gold each round. They may even prevent you from going and fighting monsters, or you have to roll higher to succeed in combat. So they stick with you until you get rid of them. And the only way you can get rid of them is by using your charisma tokens to kind of send them packing. So when you use those charisma tokens, and for those who have played role player or the monsters and minions, a lot of times people said, those charisma tokens, yeah, they let you buy something from the market a little bit cheaper, but they always kind of felt like, there wasn't much you could do with it, which a lot of times, people complained about. But frankly, if you think about it, charisma was kind of the dump stat in role-playing games, right?
Yeah, you say that, but our group has known who's good at that, and that's caused some issues.
Right.
Yeah. So you have these charisma tokens, and you can use those charisma tokens now to banish the fiends. You can also use gold, but gold's the economy is kind of tight, so you don't necessarily want to be getting rid of gold. But you can use that charisma token, and you can get rid of that fiend or banish it. And there are some scoring opportunities based on the number of fiends that you have banished. So it's an added little sort of snafu to your plan. You got the plan, but these fiends that when you take that dice, you want that higher die. You want the die you want. You have to take that fiend with it. So it's kind of like, I got to balance it out. What do I really want? Do I want that black 6 die, or do I want to take something else and not have to take that fiend?
Well, Speaking of dice, there are some new dice also included in this as well.
Yes. The amazing split dice. So the split dice are dice that are 2 colors, and you can choose either one of those colors, but they're a lower number. So rather than having a 1 through 6 on them, the split die only have 1 through 4 on them. So they're lower number, but you can get one of those 2 colors. This was a production nightmare, right? If you can imagine, have you seen a dice that has 2 colors on each face? Um, yeah,
It's a
so
new thing.
we dreamed it, and then we thought, well, this must be something we can get somebody to do. Um, yeah, not as easy as it sounds. Uh, the first couple iterations, we looked at something that was kind of like a swirl, but the problem with that was that the swirls weren't the same on each side, and it looked, it was hard to tell what color it was. So then we went with, trying to have plastic molded in such a way that each face had kind of split down the middle, the two colors. Well, that was a big challenge. We got something, but then it was very hard to have the pips be visible on them. And so after a lot of trial and error, we finally got something that we think is workable, looks good, and is pretty unique. And players really like it because one of the frustrating things about role player has always been, unless I get the dice color that I need, I'm going to have to forego fitting in that color for that scoring opportunity. Well, now I have the split dice, so it can be either one of those colors. So the chances of getting that scoring is better. However, because they're lower numbers now, again, you balance out. Do I want that color and take the lower number, or try my chances at getting a solid color die with a higher number?
I think it's a pretty good thing to have on your resume. You can say that you invented a new type of dice. That's pretty exciting. And
Well, as far as we
go
know,
ahead.
nobody had done it before. It's possible there's something else out there, but yeah, it was a bit of an adventure, but we figured it out, and we think it turned out really, really nice.
Yeah, I love all the the different kinds of dice that each expansion add, and more and more variety. I feel like that's something I really like about the role player expansions. You were saying how they don't really necessarily, this one doesn't necessarily extend the gameplay or make it feel bloated or anything, but they all kind of feel like a natural evolution of it. And whereas the first game felt complete, I feel like the expansions all make it feel more complete. They add things that are like the natural, oh, now there's monsters you can fight, and now there's this. And it seems like it seems like you've got pretty much everything you would want in terms of the character creation style of game that this one is. I feel like anything that's not in role player yet, we'll probably have to wait for role player adventures. But
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong. Do you think there's more stuff that you are considering adding to role player in the future?
So I think Keith has said a couple of times on some of the live streams we did during the Role Player Adventures campaign that role player, I think, is complete. The reason I think is you get to a point where, yes, you can add additional expansions, but after a while, it just seems like it's just more stuff. And Keith never wants to put out anything that seems superfluous. That's just extra for having a sake of having expansion. So really, Role Player Adventures was the way to do that in a meaningful way, a way that adds a unique game experience without just adding more stuff. So I think the way you put it, I think, is a perfect perfect word to talk about evolution. So role player, the base game, is a very elegant game in its design. It's a puzzle trying to fit dice together in such a way to get the maximum scoring. And you can play it just like that. But a lot of people have said, who are really into the theme of role player say, well, I feel like I created my role playing character. And what's the next thing you want to do in an RPG? Well, you want to go out and fight something, right? So Monsters and Minions was the answer to that. So now you've created your character. Well, now you can take that character and you can fight stuff. So when you add the Monsters and Minions expansion to it, you have the choice of either going to the market and buying a market card, or you can go and fight a minion to get additional scoring, as well as to build up more combat die for the very final boss battle at the end of the game. And that boss battle, everyone has an opportunity to fight the big boss. Some people are going to beat it. Some people are not going to be able to, but you have that option to get extra points for that. And then the Fiends and Familiars was just adding additional choices to the game. So being able to have the split die again to sort of mix in with the rest of the dice, and to have the familiars that give you a little bit different scoring. The way that we did it so that it did not weigh the game down, a couple of things. One is we added a lot of market cards in the expansion. So each time you go and add one of the expansions to the game, which, by the way, you can play role player with monsters and minions, or you can play it with just Fiends and Familiars, or you can do all three of them together. Mm-hmm. And if you have all the market cards, it's a big, thick stack of market cards. But the game has rules where you will randomly take some out, which is fun because now, if you played it, one of the strategies a lot of people had was to try to build up these really super big, high-scoring armor sets. Well, now when you add in all these extra market cards, it's pretty hard to get a full set. So you have to kind of pivot your strategy and think, well, I'm not probably going to see another one of the chainmail armor set because there's so many cards, and some cards have been removed. So you have to kind of think on your toes and say, well, I might get two, but then I better figure out another way if I'm going to look at the rest of the scroll cards and the spell cards and the rest of those cards. The other thing we did with Fiends and Familiars is before you would just have one die on the initiative cards, and there would be one extra initiative card than there were players. Well, now, because there are so many more dice, we start off with two on each of the initiative cards. And so when you choose that initiative card, you get two of the dice, but you have to pick one to use. You can put them both on your card, but you only can take one of the actions with that particular die. So your card's going to fill up a little faster. And then there's a card that gets put in a certain position in the deck. When you hit that in the market deck, it's called the Call to Adventure. At that point, then it goes back to drafting just one die. So it starts a little faster, but then hits a point in the game where it'll slow up a little bit, and then you'll have a few more turns. And we play tested it, obviously, a lot. And it turns out to be about the same time as it takes to play Monsters and Minions.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, it's nice to have some clever ways, like you said, to speed things up while still feeling like you're getting more content, because you are getting more content. And you've also got, of course, the big box too, that they can all now fit in. I actually don't know. Is that something that is widely available? Are you guys selling that currently?
Yeah. It's available on our website at www.thunderworksgames.com. It's should be available at retailers.
Okay.
Retailers, of course, are always a little hesitant to pull in anything that takes up a lot of shelf space. So it may be something that you might not see on a lot of your store's shelves, but it is available from our website. And the big box, boy, people just get so hungry for these big boxes. It is just a big storage solution, really, that allows you to put everything from role player, Monsters and Minions, and Fiends and Familiars all into one box. All of the character cards, all of the familiars, all the dice. It's just chuck it all in there, and it's a beautiful box. The design of the box looks like a giant tome, like a spell book. The side printing has like ribbons that looks like, like it has the bookmark ribbons in them, and fun artwork. So it's an added thing. If you're one of those people that doesn't really care about that, you get the same experience with just the regular boxes. But if you like to put everything in a big box, I know I went in all in for the Terraforming Mars big box because you want to be able to stick everything in there. But it's something that you can do. And we also have a storage solution from Meeple Realty, which you can put into the box as well. You can build that and put that in there if you like that. If you put that in there and all this stuff, it is heavy. Right? You might need to lift with your legs.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know these boxes get heavy, but I'm always a proponent of the big boxes, partially just because it's a lot easier to be like, all right, let's play role player. You can take that off and you have everything you want, whether you want to use, as you said, both expansions or just one of them. I don't have to go find the other box. I just think overall it's worth the wait.
Yeah.
Literal physical weight.
it is worth the wait. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's been really well for the Kickstarter. We offered that option to either get it just as in the regular box, which has amazing artwork, or with the big box. And then you can take the regular box and make a shadow box on art for the wall.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And we could also talk a little bit about Lockup. I know that's a game that you guys put out last year, I believe, but it's another role player game that's a worker placement one that we recently learned has some ties to role player adventures, and obviously it has ties to role player itself, that they're all in the same universe and everything. Any plans for expansions or more content for that one?
Yes, there is more in the works. I'm trying to remember what the working title is. I think it was Lockup Prison Break. Or something
that
like
sounds
that.
good. That's a
like
natural next step.
Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Sure, but I think it was something like that. But yeah, there is an expansion coming out. That one, I think we pushed into sometime in 2021. So I don't think we'll see a Kickstarter for that right now. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because really Lockup was the game that I personally think did not get enough love in 2019. I think the real reason for that was it got overshadowed by Cartographers. So we released Cartographers about the same time. And Cartographers, we didn't do a Kickstarter campaign for. We decided just to do pre-orders for it because it was meant to be this small little filler game. We just thought, well, roll and writes are hot right now. We had a game that the designer had pitched to Keith, and we thought we could retheme it with the role player universe. And lo and behold, it was huge, and it just continues to grow. As you probably already know, it was a Kenner Spiel nominee. As we found out today, we did not win, but really it was a complete honor to be nominated. We were up against The Crew, of course, is a great game from Cosmos. But Cartographers was the little game that could, and it really had a lot of popularity, I think, because it has the player interaction that a lot of these roll and write or flip and write games that seem like a solitaire game that you just play around the table with other people. This one had the interaction with the monster raids. So you would give your map to the player to your right or your left, and then they would draw the monsters on there and screw up your plans. And it just resonated with a lot of people. The artwork is beautiful. It's in, as you mentioned, the role player universe. That's why we call it call it Cartographers, a role player's tale, because it is part of the world of Ulos, the world that Keith dreamt up when he created role player, and continues to evolve now into role player adventures. And Lockup was part of that too. So Lockup was designed by Stan Kordonsky, who is a designer who's here in Wisconsin with us, and has had other designs and other games that are pretty popular. And Keith worked with them to create this worker placement, majority, kind of resource management. It's a little bit of everything in the game. And again, beautiful artwork. Fun gameplay. But because it sort of came out at the same time as Cartographers, a lot of people just kind of, didn't really look at it that carefully. So I'm really trying to get people to give it a try. I guarantee you, if you try it, there's a lot to love about it. It is a very tense game because as it goes through a very short 6 rounds and you're trying to vie with the other players to try to get majority in each of these rooms in the prison to try to get resources that then you can use to hire goons or to buy contraband items that are worth points. Mm-hmm. As many times as I've played it, it's like you get to this point where you're like, you're kind of, you get this lump in your throat because it's so close. And out of all the games, it is almost always a really close win. And that I think makes for a really enjoyable game because you really have to think of all of the different ways that you can score. No one strategy is going to work. And I think it's worth repeated plays. There's a lot of different things you can do. Every time I play it, I try something new. Half the time it doesn't work, but there's a lot of things I have tried that were like, whoa, that I didn't think of that about that way. So.
Well, I really love both because, as you said, they bring something to what we're used to of that kind of game mechanic and adds what I usually find is missing. Like you said, with cartographers, the interaction is fantastic. I like that a lot more than either solo or even it's just a race who gets that goal first, because passing the maps, you're drawing something, so you have to deal with that. It's not simply like you beat me to it. And in this, the worker placement and how you can hide some of them just becomes this really fantastic game of like trying to bluff each other out of like, did he really put his 5 there, his strongest guy? Or is he trying to bluff me out so he can take the sewers or something instead? And it has so much more. The interaction we had so much fun about that. Especially when someone flipped and it was a 0, you're like, oh, wait, is that a 0? Uh-oh. And like, or when they did place their 5 face up somewhere else, you're like, wait, if that's the 5, then what did he do over there? It just was so much more memorable to either like, oh, he beat me to get the extra worker space in some other worker placement game.
Right.
Yeah, that having the crew tokens that are face down also gives that sort of strategy of you can fake people out. Like I'm going to put something that you think I'm going to put something face down, and I can get you to put more of your stronger crew in that room to try to beat it. And then when I flip it over, it was my 2 or something like that. So it sort of. You can kind of fake people out that way. I really like that part of it as well. I think that adds an additional element. So.
Yeah, I've also enjoyed the solo mode of Lockup, and I think all the role player games have solo modes,
yes.
which is a great thing, especially for right now if you're stuck inside a lot of the time. Is that something that you guys prioritize a lot? Making sure you have a good solo mode?
Yeah, Keith is very good about making sure that a game plays well solo. And it's not just because we want to do solo. Like a lot of times a publisher will say, we got to have 1 to 5, the magic 1 to 5, right? Some games just don't do 1 to 5. But there's often, if you put the time and effort into designing a solo mode, there is really good solo games. Keith has always been very good about making sure that the Thunderworks games have that solo that feels satisfying, that works well. And even though you're playing just against AI in some cases, it will still feel like a challenging game. And definitely the Lockup has that.
Now, I don't think this is that important because I don't think they're actually mechanically different, but do you have a favorite gang to use in Lockup?
So I do like the Knolls. If you play with the advanced side and the trait cards, they do have different powers. I don't think that you don't feel necessarily tied into them. I guess I just really like the Knoll faction. No reason why.
No reason.
No reason. Exactly.
All right. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed that. But thank you for joining us. For anyone who is watching, I would definitely encourage you, if you haven't, to look into any of the role player games with Fiends and Familiars now available, or Cartographers or Lockup. And I think Role Player Adventures, you're still going to be able to maybe late back it or something, or say updates later. So if you missed that, look for that now.
It's also available. All the games are available on Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator. Sorry, I should say the Fiends and Familiars will be available very soon on Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator. We're hoping that will be ready for Gen Con Online because we're planning on doing some games of it. But Role Player Adventures is also there. And the first adventure of the 12 that will be in the box is available. So it's just a taste. Just a teaser, but enough to get you hooked. And yeah, we'd love it if people would still get in on the late backing and take advantage of the campaign, or wait until it comes out in retail in 2021. Hopefully by that time we'll all be back at conventions, and maybe Gen Con 2021 will be together, and people can take a look at it there.
We can only
hope so. Yeah. But if you got to get your fix of your game demos that you're not getting, then Tabletopia is a great way to do it. So it's good to have those up there. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us, Tim. It's always, and in such a short frame of time, it's great to be able to hang out with you and talk more about Role Player.
No worries.
Because we're big fans. And hopefully everybody at home is enjoying this and other Gen Con online coverage that's going on right now. And have a great day and enjoy. Hopefully everybody enjoys the rest of their day, and especially with that beautiful Wisconsin weather.
Yes. Thank you very much. I'll see you next week. We're doing it again, right?
It's
like a
this is a
segment,
weekly
right?
segment.
Yeah. All right, okay. Good. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for, always happy to chat about Thunderworks games. And for all those who have loved our games, support our games, all of our fans, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Come along for the ride and see what we got going on. We'd love for you to join us. And thanks for supporting and playing our games. We do it for you. So we're hoping that you'll all play them more and talk about them. So, and thanks for you guys for letting me share.
Happy to do it.
Thanks to all our members of our Patreon page for making this show possible. You can sign up for exclusive benefits or help us by liking and subscribing.
You can also take a quick survey to help us improve Roll for Crit, and in exchange, you'll receive access to a Patreon exclusive podcast episode. Stay up to date on all our Gen Con online coverage, including live gameplay at rollforcrit.com.